Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Dadsigner podcast. I'm Michael Smith, your host, and today I am joined by Jeremy Slagle. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, so Jeremy and I actually met at Creative South this year, and it was really fun to meet Jeremy and his daughter, who were both there. And asked him at that time if he'd come on. He said yes. And so, Jeremy, why don't you tell folks a little bit about where you're located, what you do, and a bit about your family?
Yeah, so I'm a graphic designer and illustrator. I'm in Columbus, Ohio. I am just about 2 miles north of the Ohio State University. The main drag for Columbus that runs right through campus is about 8 houses behind me. It's called High Street. And so I can get down to the Horseshoe to see a football game in about 12 minutes on my bicycle. So it gives you a pretty good idea of where we're located. I'm about to celebrate 27 years being married to my wife. And her name is Becky. She helps me out with the financial side and the numbers of the business. And I'm fortunate to have two children. Both are graphic designers. Faith, who you met, and she just turned 21 last week. And then my son, Caleb, who is also a graphic designer, and he's 23.
Very cool. And you have been running your own design agency for how long?
So I've had Slagle Design for 15 years. It'll be 16 years in November this year. So,
Nice. Very
yep,
cool.
yep. And you can use the word studio loosely in that it's basically me. I have a lot of other folks that I bring to any given project, writers and strategists, animators, video editors, shooters, like whatever I need for any given project, but I don't have any of those people on my payroll. So it's just kind of a different model that I have going on that I really love. It allows me to just spend a lot of time with awesome creative people and bring the right people to the table for any given project. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I saw it on your website, but we had also talked about this at Creative South. Your kids are on your About page. They're
Mm-hmm.
articulated as graphic designers and the future of Slagle Design, but they do not work for Slagle Design right now.
That's correct.
Um, and why is that?
Um, I I had them both for their college years. They interned with me, and it helped them build great portfolios. Gave them lots of experience, but it's hard when you're working for dad. It's hard to take criticism sometimes from dad. It's hard to take assignments from dad sometimes, and I think one of the things that I realized is that my kids were both very like studious in high school, and making sure stuff was turned in on time, making sure class projects were done. It's very important to them. So I sent them off to school to a local college really to help somebody else give them assignments so that they would actually do the stuff. It wasn't enough for me to be like, I have Skillshare and you can watch any of these videos anytime you want. It wasn't enough of a motivation. And in the same way that with career, having somebody besides dad, assigning the projects, having to work with sometimes difficult clients, and not have me be the buffer, having to work with people that have different personalities that they're not used to outside of the way that we communicate as a family. It's just super beneficial for them. And I feel like watching them struggle through some stuff, watching them triumph through a lot of that stuff, watching them learn and grow has been super awesome. And the other reason is, I guess, a little bit selfish, and that is like I am very niche. I do a lot of brand identity work. I do a lot of like packaging and stuff where I'm focusing on logo design, and then I'm doing print, or I'm doing packaging or environmental work. But I have pretty much stayed out of the social media realm. I don't do much as far as websites and stuff goes, but that's what they're learning a ton of right now. And they're actually starting to like find that they're enjoying some of those things a lot. While both of them appreciate brand identity and they still like doing that, and they get an opportunity to do that where they work. My son is really embracing, loving building websites, and he's doing a really wonderful job of it. And my daughter has been building out some awesome like social media campaigns and branding those out. And she's learning a ton about like differentiation and consistency, and just building a beautiful Instagram collection. And they're learning Figma, which I don't use at all, and they keep telling me I need to start learning. But it's been cool because they're learning all sorts of stuff that I could have never taught them. So if and when the time comes that they want to, that they're begging to come back now, like they want to work for me. But I think it's good for them to have to kind of make it on their own and learn different skill sets than I can teach them, and also just feel like they're not walking in my shadow. Like I want them to have like an established body of work. I almost want, when I'm ready to have them come back, be almost interviewing for that job, So that's why they don't work for me currently. But the company is called Slagle Design, and it really is something that, when it's time for me to retire, or as I'm getting closer to that, I could see myself kind of like, helping them along the way. But I eventually would love to just hand the years of my company over to them as an asset. So
Yeah. And do they reach out to you for feedback? Or do you
yes.
guys have a strong policy about that?
Yeah, no, we have a text thread. It's called the Council, and we're constantly like, if we see something awesome on Instagram, it's a screen capture, send it out, and we're just constantly like pointing out new designers and like talking about awesome stuff and sharing podcasts, and then a lot of just like, I'm working on this logo and I'm stuck. I've been looking at this too long. Help me. So there's a lot of that as well. And so it's good. My kids give really great feedback, and they see a lot of times they'll see something that I'm just not seeing. So that's super helpful to have them, to have like a sounding board for concepts.
Yeah. Did they
Yeah,
provide that feedback when they were living at home before they launched out into their careers, like high school era,
sure.
early college?
Yeah. We homeschooled, my wife homeschooled the kids through eighth grade. So what you're seeing right now with my studio was actually built on the back of my house about 11 years ago. And it's zoned for work. It has its own entryway for clients to come and go. And it really is a separate like design studio area. And the kids would come in here when they got their homework done. They were allowed in when I would have clients here. If there was a press check in the evening and I was, heading off to do that, they'd love to go with me. So they've been super, super integrated into our life. And so they've always had a pretty keen eye for design. Like they're design nerds. Like when we're doing road trips, they're calling fonts out on billboards and stuff like that. So I trust them. And the older they get and the longer they've been in the business, the more they give me really good feedback. So yeah, they've always had an opinion for sure on anything I ask for. So yeah.
Yeah. And for you, before you launched Slagle Design, how many years were you doing design work, and was that in-house, agency? What did that look like?
I started my career working at a screen printing shop, and then went from there to working at a video and film house that also had an interactive department. And we're talking early 90s. Like we developed the first Abercrombie and Fitch website. Like they literally didn't exist. And this was before e-commerce even was a thing. So you couldn't actually buy anything on the site. It was basically just an online catalog where you could see the stuff they had. And then you had to like drive to your local Abercrombie and Fitch and buy the clothing. But it was cool to be kind of like at the beginning end of sort of like what the internet was, and watching companies embrace it. And then I worked for a political direct mail company for a while, where we did, loads and loads of stuff for the Ohio House of Representatives. And then right around 98, I got married, and a friend of mine and I started an agency that ran for 12 years. And that was about a block from my house, right over on High Street, actually. We got to a point where we had 6 employees, and there were 6 of us total, and it was great. It was really great. And then in 1990, 2009, he had also founded a nonprofit organization that built orphanages in Cambodia and Thailand. And so we were also going through a really difficult time of the nation, dealing with some tough economic times, and then also trying to run 16 orphanages out of our little agency. And it just became very clear it was time to do something new. So I stepped out on my own at that point in time. The agency dissolved, and now he actually runs that full time, and it's very successful. They have 34 orphan homes, and they're in like 3 countries now. So but yeah, so yeah, that's kind of been my experience. And that, at that agency, we did all sorts of, it was focused primarily on brand identity work. So lots of local and national work came out of there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the big projects that you had mentioned and is on your site is this collaboration between the MLS and
Mm-hmm.
Target that you got to
Yeah.
work on. Tell us a little bit about that experience and how you got the call.
Yeah, that was a very interesting. It was initially an email that basically came through and said, we're looking for illustrators to work with 2, larger organizations. They wouldn't say who it was for, but they kind of gave me sort of an overview of what it was, and it sounded like a big deal. And so they were like, "Are you interested, or do you have the bandwidth to do it?" And I was like, "Yeah, count me in." Got on an initial call with them. It was through an agency called Wasserman. Wasserman actually handles a lot of the stuff, like for brands that are at like the Indy 500 or Final Four, and they do like these pop up um, marketing setups at these different events and stuff like that. So um, I think they do the Super Bowl and all the bowl games and stuff too. They're a pretty big company, but they had Major League Soccer and Target as a client, and they revealed on that call, like, I had to sign an NDA and all this stuff. I think they had initially started out with, I think it was 19 different names. So the way that they do this project with Target, which is really, really cool, is that that whatever the host city that has the Major League Soccer All-Star game, they work with a designer or illustrator from that city to create the theme for this big block party that they create every year, that they do, and then invites the whole community. And there's all this free stuff. It's really cool. So I was kind of like on that list. So they went through multiple rounds of interviews. They got it down to like top 3, and then they asked us each to kind of submit a proposal for it, and ended up getting the job, which was super exciting. I think the thing that kind of helped sell me a little bit, because I asked them all these questions after the event, like, why did you pick me? Like, I always want to know these things. And I think the fact that almost all the illustration work that I do is done within the context of a brand identity. So I'm able to kind of like crawl inside of brand standards, guidelines, and the understanding of like the personality of a brand, and design or create illustrations that are a good reflection of that company, and it still works within their brand. So I think they felt like, to be honest, like they had to go back to Target with whatever I came up with to make sure that Target approved it, with that their creative director approved it. If you know that you can work with someone who has a good understanding of how to illustrate within brand context, that makes their job a whole lot easier too. So,
Yeah.
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 One of the things I learned through that was, like, they went through this vetting process, and I was shocked to hear like the criteria a lot of times. We went through like legal background stuff. One of the things that Target really values, which I was really happy to hear, was as they went through and looked at the other candidates, they went through their social media. They did a deep dive, and they did not want anybody to represent the Target brand locally if that person, especially locally within their community, was controversial. If they were online and they were constantly, trying to be, whether they're on Twitter calling people out and being difficult. One person they chose not to work with because they had like practically nude photos of themselves on their Instagram. So like I was really surprised. Like they were very, very like their legal team and Target's team was like, we're a family store. We don't want to connect our brand with people that are are doing this and that. And so that weeded the list down pretty significantly. So just from the perspective, like people are watching, they're looking at your Instagram, they're looking at your social media, and it could cost you a job if you're being divisive, and that it wasn't even like political in one way or the other. It was just like, if you're just divisive, they
Yeah.
didn't want to have anything to do with you. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's cool. I remember at one point when I was coming out of college, someone turned me on to the fact that the CIA had a hard time finding designers because the criteria, a lot of designers have either a history or a past, or it's just because like it seems to attract the creative type who tend to be a little bit more, you
Vocal.
know, yeah. And so they encouraged me. They're like, "Well, you're pretty straight laced. You should you should give it a shot." And but yeah, like there is an aspect to that, and yeah, that's cool. Was that the year the crew won the cup?
So I think I may be totally wrong about this, but I think it's I may this may I maybe it may have just been completely coincidence. The year following it. So
Okay.
I don't know if the All-Star game automatically gets played in whatever city the team won the cup previously. It may have been complete coincidence.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
They have some really really cool ephemera. The Columbus Crew.
Yeah, they've been great. It's so funny because I was just talking to someone. I'm a big pickleball nerd, and so we have one of the Major League Pickleball teams here in Columbus, and it is very fledgling right now. Like it's so new, nobody really wants to invest in it a ton in it yet. But I remember when the Crew started, they played at Ohio Stadium. They didn't have their own stadium, and it was just a matter of like, is this even gonna take? Are there gonna even be fans for this? And we just built this. I actually, it's wild because I think I was like 19 or 20 years old when I designed the inaugural ticket for the first game that the Columbus Crew ever played. I mean, they entrusted me to do it because they had no budget, and I was actually supposed to get a press sheet of the tickets, and they never gave it to me. Thanks, Crew. If you happen to have one laying around, let me know because you owe me one. But that was kind of my first chance to work with the Columbus Crew. But like a lot of these teams, like people, I was listening to someone the other day, and they were talking about like back in the 70s and 80s, like the NBA, like their games were like on tape delay, like they weren't even live because there just wasn't enough money and there weren't enough people watching the NBA. But it takes a while, So working with the pickleball, like getting kind of in the ground floor of Major League Pickleball has been pretty exciting for me, even though they have zero budget to work with. But just kind of being able to make a mark on that first slate of teams has been kind of fun. They're
Yeah.
actually playing this weekend here in Columbus. All the best players in the country are going to be here, which I'm super excited about, and they're going to be wearing their new jerseys with my logo on it. So I'm excited about that too. So
And that logo, if I'm not mistaken, I was looking at your site earlier, was a redesign of a logo that had a White Castle. Was that like they're the sliders, and so like they
yes,
were White Castle sliders, and now
yes.
that's not a part of the logo, probably for copyright reasons. But
Well, so actually, White Castle was perfectly happy with
okay,
having their logo be part of it. The bigger issue was that Columbus has a massive healthcare industry. We have so White Castle is based here in Columbus as well, but we also have like the James Cancer Hospital, which has come on and become one of the big the big sponsors of the sliders as well. And so, sliders, if you're familiar with White Castle, that's the name of their burgers. And but what's happening is as they're kind of like, they don't just have one sponsor, they have a whole bunch of sponsors now. Especially some of these healthcare organizations are like, we're not sure. We want to align with red meat and hamburgers and, a high calorie diet. So literally, while White Castle is still a sponsor, we're kind of moving away from it being so heavily, fast food oriented, to just kind of, so we're still using White Castle's colors, still using the name sliders, but they're trying to like reimagine what that looks like. Like, what is a slider in the context of pickleball, not just a hamburger? So it's been a little bit of a challenge, but it was a really fun project to work on. So.
We don't have any White Castle out here, so if I want any, I have to buy them frozen at the grocery store, which is probably even worse than the ones that are made at the restaurant.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't mind. I don't mind a slider every once in a while, but usually it's because I went to like our local minor league baseball team. They always throw coupons out for sliders. If the Clippers win, you get a free slider. But other than that, it's not something I like drive out of my way to get, for sure.
Yeah. Um, Speaking of sports branding, I noticed that you've done a number of other sports brands like in your portfolio. The Scotties was one,
Mm-hmm.
really really cool logo. I also saw you did Cedarville. You redesigned their yellow jacket.
Mm-hmm.
Looks far more fierce and interesting than the old one.
The old one
um,
was a complete ripoff of Georgia Tech's logo.
but yeah, yeah,
And when they switched to go to NCAA, they were NAIA and they went Division II NCAA. That they kind of showed up on the radar a little bit, and I think it was like, yeah, probably ought to not do a knockoff of an NCAA Division I team.
yeah, yeah,
But it's always been a small school, and a lot of schools do that. A lot of colleges do that. I would say, 9 times out of 10, when I do a mascot for a university or college, it's because they have some sort of iteration of a trademarked logo, that they've already used. So,
yeah. One of the other things that you run, and I believe you started it, was the Created Conference, which is a 1-day conference that takes place in Ohio. Yeah, tell us a little bit more about that and why you started it.
yeah. So it was actually started by a friend of mine named Joe. I was doing his name's Joe Deptowitz, and he's a local UI UX designer, super talented guy, probably 20 some years younger than I am. But just a really, really neat guy. And I was already running something that was somewhat similar, but they were like monthly talks where we were bringing in speakers and allowing them to tell their stories. And it was fine. I did it for about a year and a half, 2 years. But it was like every month when I would do a new one, it was just like, I was realizing that if I brought a photographer in, there would be a whole bunch of photographers that would show up, and we'd have, 75 photographers that would show up, with a handful of people that were creatives in general that wanted to hear the talk. But then the next month I would have like an industrial designer come in, and the crowd that was there the month before wasn't the same crowd that was coming in. I was really trying to build community. So about that time, a mutual friend of Joe's and mine connected us together, and Joe was working on this idea of a created conference. So it was a 1-day event with a lot of different creative speakers from different backgrounds, which sounded a lot more appealing to me. And the other part that I liked about that is I thought, like, if we could do something that's like a once a year event, but then help create a consistent community by doing like a Bible study that met throughout the year. So we kind of like joined forces, and that first year I jumped in and really helped out with Created Conference. And then we had it all under this umbrella organization called Parables, which is what mine was called, because it's all about sharing stories. And then just last year we decided, like, it's too confusing. Like, what's Parables? What's Created? What are these coffees? Like, so we kind of merged the whole thing under its own brand identity last fall. And it's been really great. So we do a 1-day conference. It's all like faith-based, but like anybody could really enjoy it. It's about inspiration. It's about like working through hard things as a creative. We have people that are followers of Jesus and people that aren't, that come to it. So it's really for anybody. But it really is an encouragement to a lot of people. And we do like a workshop. We have some great speakers. Josh Emmerich is going to be our keynote speaker this year. And then we've got everything from industrial designers to music to writers to videographers and animators. Like we try to really pack it in. And it's a great day. It's a really fun day. So we had about 100 people last year. We've grown. We've basically doubled almost every year. And so our goal this year, we got a bigger venue. Our goal this year is to get 200 people. We'll see if that happens, but yeah.
And when is it taking place?
It's September 27th. It's on a Saturday.
Yeah, that's cool. And I believe Daniel Schwartz, did he speak there maybe last year?
Yes.
Nice.
Oh, he was great. And
yeah,
if you're interested, all of our talks are on our website. So if you go to creatednetwork.com and you go into the conference section, there's a link there. And I think it might actually be at the top anyways. It's just the talks. We have the last 2 years worth of talks right there on the website. You can watch them. Daniel was great. He was so good. I've been a follower of his for a while on Instagram, and we've become good friends. And then just him coming. And then the thing that was great is not only did he talk, but he did an awesome workshop, a printing workshop during the lunch break. It was great. It was so much fun. We really enjoyed having him. So
yeah, he was a guest on here. Oh, probably in the first 12, one of the first 12 guests on the podcast. And
he's
for a
such a great
while,
guy.
he had the most downloads.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's so good.
It was a claim to fame. Yeah.
Yeah. He's so good. And he just loves to share his story and share his passion for what he does. And he's got a great social media game going for sure. That's probably why he had so many downloads. Is he's got a great following, and there's nothing not to love about him. So
Yeah.
he's a good guy.
Yeah. Really good guy. Well, I appreciate you coming on. I have two more questions before we sign off. And that would be, what has been your greatest parenting success? And then what has been your greatest parenting, either learning or failure?
Yeah, I think from a success standpoint, and this is a preference that a lot of people have. Part of it is we live in a failing school district. So the options for us when it came to like what we chose to do with our kids for school was very limited. I grew up homeschooled for a couple of years, and I remember my wife and I were literally like reminiscing about this last night when we were hanging out. And it's just, I remember when my son was about ready to go into kindergarten, and I said, like, what do you think about considering homeschooling the kids? Like, he's already beyond kindergarten level in reading and math and all that stuff, and he's just going to be bored. And a panic attack set in, and I remember she literally said, she's like, God's going to really have to change my heart before I'm going to ever consider doing that. Well, she ended up homeschooling the kids through 8th grade, and then we put them in at the local Christian school for high school. And I think one of our biggest wins was homeschooling the kids, and part of it was also because like school is just so inefficient in general. You've got so many kids, and you got to get them all on the same page. And so you've got some kids that are like way ahead the curve, but you can't move on till you get an entire classroom of kids on the same page. Where with homeschooling, it's like, you got it, let's move on. And so the kids would be done early in the day and have their afternoons. And so like one of our things here was that we had limited screen time. You had 30 minutes a day for screen time. Anything outside of that should be creative and craft related. And so like raising the kids to where they would get bored, and then they had to figure something out that they wanted to do, and then they made stuff, I think was probably one of the biggest parenting wins for us. I have no regrets whatsoever, but homeschooling was what facilitated allowing us to be able to do that for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about biggest learning or failure?
I think from a learning standpoint, when you're that tight knit of a family, and uh, you kind of, when you start to see the kids gravitate towards creative stuff, you almost want to, like, you should be a designer, like you should follow in my footsteps. My dad was a basketball coach my entire life, and he knew at a very young age, based on my athletic ability, that I was never going to go into athletics. And so, but what he did was he was very intentional about, like, I went on road trips with the team all the time. I learned how to wrap ankles. I was the water boy, at high school and college games my entire life. So, like, he really integrated me into his life, and I got to see him lead, which was super, super valuable for me. So, but for me, like, I think letting them explore, like, one point in time, my daughter was like, I think I want to be a fashion designer, or maybe I want to be an interior designer. And, like, this internal need to be like, no, 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 you do this. But allowing them to process out loud and encourage and say, that sounds great. Let's look into that. Let's consider that. And I think learning to not stifle their dreams, and to, like, to to kind of see them come full circle on their own to choose their career path, was really satisfying to me. And I think learning to just kind of, like, once they've launched on their own, to just kind of support that. And I learned a lot through that process, for sure.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. Well, thank you so much for coming on. If folks wanted to connect with you online or find you online.
The best place is to start at my website, which is slagledesign.com. And then I'm on Instagram mostly. I try to stay off Twitter. There's just too much drama. And I'm on LinkedIn as well. But yeah, Instagram's where you can find most of my stuff, and on my website as well. Feel free to drop me an email if you have questions, or want to reach out. I'd love to connect with people.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
thanks, Jeremy, and we'll talk soon.
Yep. Thank you.